All right, so look, late pass on this one. This one was recorded right after the Olympics. So, just for context, I was talking about breaking and what it means for hip hop culture to have b boys and b girls in the Olympics, and how it was kind of complicated for a few reasons. And then my guest, documentary filmmaker Mustafa Mirza, started talking about potentially the most important thing that's happened in Pakistan sports wise in a very long time. But I'll let him tell you about that. And they've watched something, and it's got to feel like it's been taken from you. There's no other
Well,
sport with that kind of baggage, I don't think.
this is a great segue
Ooh,
into the Pakistani gold medal in athletics in javelin of all sports.
let's go. Let's go.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I think like a lot of what you just said in terms of not having a environment, resources, being a first of its kind, Arshad Nadeem has defied all odds to bag the first gold medal in athletics for what is what like the fifth largest country in the world, Pakistan.
Yeah, let's get
Um,
into it.
it is, yeah, it was. I think what he has done in terms of magnitude for the country I come from is really, I mean, of epic proportions. Um, we have a tradition of sport in Pakistan that is dominated by one sport primarily, which is cricket,
Mm,
where pretty much all our resources, funding, sponsorship deals, everything goes into that one sport. In yesteryears, we and this is the reason why the national sport of Pakistan is actually not cricket; it's actually field hockey. We the last time we won an Olympic medal was in the team sport of field hockey in 1992, and that was on the back of like some a few generations of players and coaching and staff and like investment in the game that had led to those medals.
mm,
The other kind of big like global sporting achievement that Pakistan has had has been in squash, which in the next Olympics I think will finally be a sport that is recognized. But we had
looking forward to that.
again, yeah, exactly.
The stars are
We
aligned,
had
man.
exactly, in terms of like a winning streak. There's a Pakistani athlete Jahangir, who I think he won like 555 international matches in a row in squash. That too in an environment, in a kind of whole infrastructure that enabled him to be the best athlete he could be. And I mean, no knock on him. Legendary stuff from his end. Then comes Arshad Nadeem, who's on our screen, who literally, there is no history of javelin or athletics in Pakistan. Who literally he has started what, who knows what it ends up becoming, this new kind of path, or kind of, yeah, he started this new path for a whole new brand of sportsmen, sportswomen in Pakistan. Like there is no precedent for what he has done. And take the kind of historical context out of it, what actually he achieved in the final is equally kind of mind-boggling. Like, so you have 5 rounds of javelin, and by the way, I didn't know anything about javelin
Right.
before I saw this happen.
You're now a fan.
Let's
You're now
be
a fan.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who watches that? But I was, because there was a Pakistani who was in the final, and I was like, wow, like this is our closest shot to a medal. We haven't had one in like 30 years as a country. Arshad Nadeem, in his second round, so you have 5 tries at it, and second round, he broke the Olympic record for the distance that he covered, which was a 90 plus meter distance that he covered. And it's like right up top in the competition, you break the Olympic record, and you just kind of are like, okay, I mean, gold's hair. We've kind of done it. And if you watch him, you can tell that while he's really happy about the result, there is still more in him. And he's like, okay, well, I still have three more tries. It's business as usual, although he's done something absolutely insane already. And you can tell like how much like he's playing like I think in javelin, and I think Usman Samyuddin in that article really rightly mentions that he says that his competition is him. um and that's just like, to me, it's like, okay, you just broke the Olympic record and you have like what, like three more tries at this, and you're not showing any kind of outward emotion. Lo and behold, his last try, or his second last try, he breaks another record. And that's also a 90 plus meter. I mean, it's not as far off as his second round one was, but he does it again. Like, even if he had just done that, he would have broken an Olympic record. And so it's the ultimate domination that he and his kind of fitness and what he has brought to his game, really, that is mind-boggling to watch. But then when you kind of, as a Pakistani, when you're watching it, when you know that he has defied all norms of sport because of lack of resources, lack of like, there's so much corruption within the sporting boards. There's like literally, I mean, he came from nothing. So you have that happening. And then thirdly, his competition is an Indian man. The defending champ is Neeraj Chopra, who is an Indian javelin thrower. And it's like, wow, I was not expecting to see a Pakistan India rivalry in javelin of all
Right.
sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Not cricket, but yeah.
so I'm just like in awe of like what actually transpired in front of me. And then post winning, there's been a lot of coverage, um, which I think
Well, so
also.
just for a moment, should we? There's a clip which maybe we could watch.
Sure, sure,
Um,
yeah. So this is his. I mean, the Arabic commentary with this is just excellent. So you see him right now, right? Like, this is the most emotion he shows after shattering an Olympic
mm,
record, and on his second try.
yeah.
And he still
And
has
he
like
just
three
sort
or
of
four
puts his
more.
hands up,
Yeah.
and that's it.
He's like, yeah. And then for the rest of the bout, or the rest of the match, like you can tell that he's still thinking he can kind of do better.
Yeah.
Like that this was just okay, this was good, but like, I'm out here to play today.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't it. So I was just completely kind of taken aback by all the different layers of what I had watched, along with the feat, the skill, the what he brought to the sport, defying the odds in Pakistan, of
Mm,
like the actual miracle that like what he has accomplished, what it means.
yeah.
And then also, I think the Pakistan India kind of theme to this sport and this moment is equally interesting, because I think it shows the best of athletes and sportsmen. Like, you have Neeraj Chopra and him, who obviously have competed against each other for some time, but because this is an individual sport that doesn't have a lot of like kind of political weightage,
Mm,
like, they express themselves in the most beautiful ways when they're speaking about each other. It is so great to watch that. And don't
mm-hmm.
get me wrong, like, even in cricket, like, you have Pakistani and Indian cricket players who give each other the respect that their kind of sport deserves, and like their skill deserves, and there's a lot of camaraderie, there's some friendship, there's a lot of that. But I mean, the way our governments kind of deal with it, the way with this rivalry, the way this classic kind of rivalry has also become like one of the known defining kind of events within the sport of cricket as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is just like, there's this whole kind of element to it, but with Arshad Nadeem and Neeraj Chopra, you can just see like how much kind of, they both love each other's achievements, like back each other up. And
Mm-hmm.
there were these really emotional kind of interviews that were going around online after um Arshad won gold, with Neeraj Chopra's mother interviewed about, having what she feels about her son not winning
Yeah.
gold, and in fact that Arshad, a Pakistani, won gold, and she was like, first of all, the silver is as good as the gold for me, and also he's our son who won. He's part of who
Wow.
we are. He is us. And like that, just that moment for me watching that, I was just so taken aback by it. Such beautiful sentiments on such a big occasion, and
Yeah.
so effortlessly given. Like, she was like, yeah, I don't understand what the question is. He's ours. Like, we are the same people. Like, what are you talking about? And then
Wow.
you have Arshad Nadeem's mother also saying similar things
Mm-hmm.
about Neeraj Chopra, and you're just like, this is what sports about. It transcends so much. And
Yeah.
also really hoping that, like, now in Pakistan specifically, there's going to be a lot of like political circus around him. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of politicians kind of going around, going to visit him, presenting him with all kinds of, actually it's already happening, presenting him with, an insane amount of money, presenting them with cars, giving him the
Mm-hmm.
kind of recognition that he deserves, and so on. But what actually happens in the next few years for the sport? Will athletics be taken a bit more seriously within the
Right.
Pakistani sporting industry? I
Mm.
mean, these are such big questions, and I hope there's like more that comes from it. But I mean, that guy's a hero, and what he's done is just like perhaps the, I mean, most, I would say, I would even argue, like, in the sporting world that he comes from, without any kind of backup that he's had, and without any infrastructure, greatest Pakistani sporting achievement ever.
Wow.
Sue me.
There's the car to come pick you up.
Yeah, man. It's gonna. Oh, yeah. There's a Pakistani joke, like a black SUV will come pick you up after this.
I
Yeah.
think, I mean, just the way that you're describing the way that their two parents talked about each other's kids, you know what I mean? Which, as you say, I mean, it's hard to overstate how meaningful that could be. Um, but then, yeah, also, I mean, am I detecting concern in your voice about what happens next?
Oh, 100%. I think, like, you know, his meteoric rise. I mean, he comes from a small town called Mia Channu, um, and it's really. I mean, he has a really good head on his shoulders, and he's already advocating for a lot of like social welfare kind of schemes. Like, he wants like a women's university built in his town so that women don't have to travel 3 hours to the big city Multan.
Okay.
um so like you're already hearing this, but there's just going to be so much kind of co-option and appropriation of
Mm-hmm.
his win for other people's kind, who will take other political players, power players, they will kind of co-opt this win as their victory.
Yeah.
And I can already see that kind of happening. You have this like one kind of video going around of our prime minister watching the video, and obviously you see the kind of he's you see the reaction that he has, and he's not saying much. He just has his hands up, but he has a aide with him, or like, a colleague with him, and he's like, this is all you, this was your vision, and and you're just like, okay, well, he didn't say it, but he definitely posted it.
Mm.
Like, and it's just like a little insane. Like, yes, there is some truth to him getting some good kind of like getting a platform under one of the ruling party's initiatives. There was like a youth kind of festival that happened, and Arshad
Mm-hmm.
Nadeem kind of participated early on and got a lot of recognition there.
Mm.
But it is just so much more than that. Like what he has done for himself, and it is his win alone. TBD what happens in the next few years with him.
Yeah.
I mean, and so far, I mean, I have to say he's really kind of, I mean, he's an athlete. He knows how to take care of himself, and he knows how to present himself. And I mean, I guess to be seen what happens after this. But I mean, the story is just. I mean, I posted something on Instagram that Disney needs to buy the life rights right now.
Get back in. I don't know.
I mean, there
Go
is
make the
also like a
documentary.
lot of like stuff going around, like his village all pulled in money for his javelin to be bought. And I mean, like, come on, he's been doing this for 6 years. Like, yes, he had a lot of support, and he does come from a very small town. There's no doubt, but there's like also this exaggeration a little bit of the narrative, the myth, the lore, especially from
Right.
a Western audience that you're seeing.
Yes.
But yeah, Disney, this is your moment.
Yeah. No. No. They people love a story of a small village coming together to send the one person.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Actually, perfect for Disney. Disney would love it.
Yeah,
Yeah. No. You're
absolutely.
totally right. Look. Get yourself in there, man. Get yourself in there. You can EP it.
Yeah, I would love that. But yeah, I mean, that was partially why. I mean, I'm glad you've had me on to talk about all these things. But this is why I just feel like been it's just been quite the ride in the last few weeks with the Olympics. There's just so much that's happened, and it's nice to be able to like, you
Yeah.
know, unpeel all these layers and see what's under, because there's the good, there's the bad, there's the ugly, there's
Yeah.
all of it.
Well, I mean, you're tapped in. You're reading stuff from all over the place. Are you noticing a difference? Because there always is a difference, right? There's always a difference in between how people locally are processing it, how the diaspora is processing it. Are you noticing any differences?
In terms of how the diaspora is taking in sport, or
Like this particular win.
yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You know, when the cricket World Cup just happened now, there was the first kind of Pakistani India game, again, biggest rivalry,
Yeah.
that took place in New York City, of all places.
Yeah.
And they made a special
I saw
stadium.
a few people were there. You were there also,
Yeah,
right?
I was there,
Yeah.
and I am. That was I really. It was happening in my backyard, so I was like, I have to. There's just no way I can't go.
Yeah.
So I moved mountains, but I made it without.
Mm.
Okay, I don't want to get into how I got there, but I got there.
No incriminating stuff here. It's all right. It's all right. We
Yeah,
got you.
exactly. But that was for me as like a Pakistani, um, you know, who's been living in America for the past 8 years without any family, or all my family's back home and all
Yeah.
over, watching cricket play out in in what is the diaspora, and seeing the fans in the stands and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's just one of those things that everybody can rally around, and the differences become less kind of in your face between the diaspora, because like
Mm.
I always find myself sometimes feeling a little disconnected with the Pakistani diaspora, right? Not in terms of language. I mean, of course we
Right.
can speak, but in terms of the way we carry ourselves, and in terms of the kind of goals we have. I mean, I have some great friends. They're Pakistanis, who second, third, fourth generation Pakistani Americans, and they have a whole different kind of way at looking at the world, and also a way at looking at Pakistan, which is like, oh, I could never even go there. Like I've gotten
Right.
that like kind of sentiment come to me as well, or like even, or just now they're feeling a bit more confident about their Pakistani identity and are flexing that
Really.
muscle. So I'm seeing like this kind of spectrum, and then with Arshad Nadeem or with sports,
Mm.
it's that one kind of think that because it's so universal, because it transcends that kind of diaspora boundary, and it's just a Pakistani win, or
Yeah.
it's a Pakistani loss, which is what our cricket team has subjected us to for years and years and years. Like seeing that common ground and seeing how those kind of interactions take place, I think that's partially why, like, I'm finding sports so much more stimulating than some of my other
Mm,
beats that I've been covering for years. Because I can
yeah.
see myself and somebody who is shares so much with me, but who's completely different and has a completely different upbringing, take part and be critical, but all and be appeasing and enjoying it and getting annoyed about it. It's like this fandom thing, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's the reactions mostly are the same,
Mm,
but maybe there's a bit more pride, and the pride comes in different ways. It's celebrated
yeah.
or expressed. I think that would be the kind of best way. Like for me, being away and seeing Arshad Nadeem doing his thing, I was just like, wow, like even if I was in Pakistan or even I was there, it doesn't matter. This was just so phenomenal.
It's interesting because I feel like that's sort of almost an inverse of what we're seeing with breaking, because breaking, I think a lot of, again, I'll say it, like a lot of Americans, and not even just Black Americans, I think a lot of Americans will see it and say, wait, what the heck? Why aren't we winning? Which of course is something that Americans say in general. Why aren't we
Right.
winning? But seeing it and saying, wait, where are we? What's this? And this is something again that I spoke about pretty directly with um with Phil Kim, who's, his parents immigrated from Korea. And he born and grew up in Canada, and that he's not what a lot of mostly Americans, but I think a lot of people worldwide would expect when they hear of. He doesn't look like what they might think of when they think of what does a breaking champion look like? What does a breaking champion look like? What does a gold medal b-boy look like? That's not it. And he's aware of that. And I think there's a breaking for a lot of Americans, even if they only have a very tenuous grip on hip hop culture in general. And I consider myself somebody who's been living in it for some time. It almost feels like seeing something foreign that has become foreign to you, that you should own. That, wait, this is ours, isn't it? Why am I seeing it over here? Why does it look
Hmm.
different? Why am I not winning? Whereas what you're telling me is it's almost like a surprise, where a lot of, I think, people didn't realize, oh, we got a guy in the Olympics and he's good
Yeah.
and he won. Yo, what? You know what I mean? And and
Yeah.
so and so yeah, and Hollow Rage, I see exactly what you're saying. Like, yo, I mean, there's Victor Montalvo was in there. There were people in the competition, and there are some Americans, there are some Black Americans, there's some Black non-Americans, there are Latinos up in the ranks. But I think there's something about, we have this idea in our head of what breaking looks like. Americans specifically have an idea in our head what breaking looks like and should look like and should always look like. And it doesn't look like that anymore. And I think it's a little bit of a shock to the system culturally. I can't say whether there's different ways of looking at it, whether it's good or bad. Um, but then in what you're talking about, it's like almost all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's this there's this new reason to feel good about where I'm from. This is great. I didn't know this. And so it's a completely different, it's coming at sport, I think, from two different sides, which is realizing that this is not just a bunch of people throwing sticks or spinning around on the back of their heads. It's how emotional and how culturally relevant something can become really quickly, that most people were not thinking about breaking in July. And all of a sudden in August, it became very important to them. Most people were not thinking about javelin in July. And in August, it became very important. Here we are.
I don't think
And then,
most people were ever thinking about javelin.
yeah. But then what do we do about it from now? Like, what do we do about it
Yeah.
here? And in the case
Yeah.
of Pakistan, like, maybe it gets weirdly co-opted in some political campaign against his wishes. Over here, who knows what happens with breaking? Maybe people just are mad, or maybe somebody turns it into a Campbell's soup commercial and then we forget about it again. I don't know. I really don't know.
I feel like the Olympics are like that kind of time capsule we send ourselves that we'll check in on in 4 years. Like, hey, how are we doing? What's the vibe check here? Like, what do we think was going to happen versus what really happened versus what
Yeah.
is new and upcoming? And so, it's all these kind of ideas that are super interesting. But yeah, I mean, for Pakistan, for Arshad, this will be a lifelong thing because he's just done something really insane, for himself as opposed to a team sport. Uh, and I mean, let's see what's. I mean, all I have to say is next at the next Olympics, you're talking about this winning mentality, this American way of thinking, that we deserve it. Why are we not there? We made it. We
Yeah.
created it. That's how I feel about cricket at the Olympics, and Pakistan better medal.
Oh, I mean, don't even get me started on. You know what? Honestly, I'm gonna leave it with this. One thing. Speaking of, culture and how these sports and things matter to places where all of a sudden everybody becomes, every 4 years everybody becomes a mostly benign nationalist, mostly benign,
Right.
um, and then goes back to whatever level of nationalism that they were at previously. Um, this is going to be an interesting tipping point because China tied the U.S. for gold medals this year. I don't think you can really overstate how much that is going to mean for China and how much that is going to mean for the US, because that is going to be a blow to the ego for the United States, and that is going to be a confirmation that we're doing everything right in China. And I
Absolutely.
think we are going to look, I think there's a lot of little moments like this. I think TikTok is one of those, but I think in a few years when we look back at how China and the US, as not just governments but mainstream culturally wise, look at each other, I think things like TikTok and I think things like the Olympics will be, small data points, but significant ones.
For sure. Um, I mean, there is that other number though, right? That the Americans can always point out to, which is total number of medals.
Total number of medals, but if you're not first, you're last, man. Come on.
Right. But that's my mentality where I'm like, yo, it's the medals, man.
But yo, everyone, please thank Musa for coming through. And honestly, and the insights that you had about, helping me to connect some of the stuff with, again, with the hijab ban and the do rag thing. I thought about that just
Right.
now, but also, about the Pakistan getting the thing in javelin. Like, is that big news for a lot of people in the States? Absolutely not. And so cool to have you come through and break that down. Again, thanks so much for coming through, man.
No, and,
Anytime.
and thanks to everyone in the chat for keeping up. It's always such a pleasure, Dex, and I'm so happy we got to break it down and do a little bit of a recap. Definitely going to see you in 4 years' time when the Olympics are happening in your backyard.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what that's gonna be like. Yeah, I keep
Yo,
forgetting
that's
about
gonna be
that.
wild.
It's I don't know if I'm looking forward to that, but we'll see. Yeah, come through. You'll be a javelin expert by that point, and then at that
By
point,
that point, I'm in the media box. Don't worry.
I'll be like live streaming on Mark Zuckerberg's whatever, just beaming straight into people's brains, and you can like show me a live 3D demonstration of how javelin works, and yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great.
That'll be fun.
But
All
anyway,
right,
man,
cheers,
yo,
man. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.